Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Loving Life Either here on YouTube, and I'm a reseller on different platforms, and I do a lot of different things here as well as YouTube. Today's video is very simple, guys. We're going to be talking through some truths about reselling. And this is a video that I've been wanting to put out for a while, and I decided to just go ahead and throw it in here. I've been thinking about this, doing my own research on some things, and just trial and error, conversations with other resellers, them verifying with what I am feeling and what I am seeing also. So do stay tuned, guys. This is going to be a great talk about the truth about reselling, whether it's lives or platforms, the truth about reselling. Stay tuned. Okay, you guys, now what I mean by truth about reselling is there are a lot of things about reselling that you hear a lot of mixed opinions about from various different people. But I want to kind of share with you just between some of the interviews that I've been doing and talking to other resellers that I haven't been interviewing, and just like hearing through the grapevine on Instagram and other YouTube videos and different things like that. These are just some thoughts that I've collected about reselling, and I think right now, with the way reselling is going, this is a really good time right now to discuss some of these important topics. And for you as your own business, figure out with these important topics which direction you need to go in for your business. So let's dive into this. Okay, guys, we're going to get this particular topic out of the way. Okay, guys? Because this is one of those topics where it's either an exciting topic for you, or you're like, I want nothing to do with this whatsoever. And that is lives. First of all, I have no negative or positive feedback on lives, guys. Lives are lives, period. Lives work for some resellers and lives don't work for some resellers. And that is the case in some ways, personally, for people. Some people are they get social anxiety and they can't even be on lives, even as just like a participant, not even being a host, but just as a participant, because they have social anxiety. Being in front of a camera, talking to people is just way too much for their personality. They're very shy people, or they just don't like being around people. And so lives to some people is just a complete turn off. And that's understandable. If that is you, I completely respect that, and I completely understand that. It's not me in any way, shape, or form. I am quite the opposite. But that is some people. Another way that lives are just really negative for some people is they just don't like the way lives work. They don't like holding things up and turning it, flipping it, showing it. And they don't like the interaction as far as, selling something for a super cheap price. They'd rather just list. And you know what? If that is you, that is so totally okay. It is okay to feel that way. Seriously. Even though I enjoy lives, I enjoy being on lives to a certain extent. I do enjoy doing my Poshmark lives, but you know what? When I do my lives, it's a business reason. It is seriously a business reason. And if that business reason doesn't work for me being on lives, I simply don't do the lives. It's that simple. For me, lives, when I'm doing my lives, it is partly a social interaction. But I have other reasons for why I do lives, guys. It's not just to come up here, flip an item back and forth, and say, hey, come buy my item. For me, it's partly algorithm, and the other thing is social interaction, building community, and getting my eyes in front of other people, getting my items in front of other people. I will explain that a little bit more when we talk about Poshmark lives. I was doing Whatnot lives. I've been trying really hard to make Whatnot work. I've gone back and forth, and one of the reasons why I didn't want to give up, I've been trying for like a year and a half, I didn't want to give up on it, is because my personality is one where I don't want to give up on something unless I've exhausted all ways that it could possibly work. And if you're like me, you don't want to give up on something until you know without a shadow of a doubt that maybe this is something that just isn't going to work for you. I was trying to push lives. Now, I think for me with Whatnot is very competitive. It is just extremely competitive. In my opinion, Whatnot lives are even more competitive than Poshmark lives. Because Whatnot is just very different than Poshmark. And I think now, especially with clothing niches, I think if you didn't climb onto the clothing niche when it first came out and whatnot, almost a year and a half ago now, if you did not establish yourself back then, whether it was women's, kids, or men's clothes, you will have a challenging time establishing yourself. And after talking with other whatnot resellers and other Poshmark sellers who've done lives or do listings, the differences between them, I agree 100% that if you're going to do whatnot lives, you have to be willing to wait probably an average of 6 to 8 months to really get yourself established, build up community, and be willing to sell smaller amounts on your lives while you're waiting that time to get established, to really build up and gain more followers, gain more establishment, sell pieces. And if you're, I don't recommend you selling for $1. I really, really don't, unless you're literally just wanting to flesh stuff out and you don't care how much you make on the item. If you have something that's like from your closet or you source from the bins and you're okay with only making 40 cents on a piece and you want to start at $1 to build up community, that will work fine for you. But if you have more invested in that piece and you're losing money, I do not recommend $1 starts. I only recommend your COG plus at least your fee on whatnot if you're willing to do that in your business model to build up community. But again, it is still probably going to take you 6 to 8 months to build up community, and you're not going to be selling pieces every time you go live. You may have multiple shows where you're not selling anything, or maybe you only sell 1 or 2 pieces in that live show, whether it's kids, women's, or men's. You have to be willing to get it through a show selling nothing or selling only a couple pieces in each show, and be willing to take 6 or 8 months to build up a proper community before you're really selling a lot of items. So if you want to do lives on whatnot that way, go for it. For me and my particular business model, what my husband and I want to accomplish in our business in the next year, that is not necessarily what's going to work for me. So even though men's clothes were selling for me on lives, I had chosen to step back because my husband and I have been doing research on other avenues of income, working from home, that are something that we want to work out for ourselves. Yes, I could be spending an hour doing lives, but my husband's like, I would rather you be doing, spending your time knowing where things are going to sell. So for me, I'm going to continue to do my Poshmark lives, and this is why. One, it kicks the algorithm. I'm already listing on Poshmark, and anytime you're on Poshmark, for whether you're listing on a live, doing a live, in a live, you are kicking the algorithm on Poshmark, okay? So I have noticed sometimes when I'm on Poshmark, if I have done a live and I'm kicking the algorithm, sometimes it helps boost my sales, okay? Sometimes it doesn't. It really kind of depends on what Poshmark is doing, right? But sometimes it does help me with some sales. The other thing is I am building community on those lives with the people that are in the lives with me, okay? Now, I'm not just on there flipping items. I'm actually doing shared shows with people, okay? So it's not just that I'm going on trying to sell men's or women's pieces. I have a specific way that I'm doing my lives, and I'm actually on there doing a share show with community. And I'm also learning about brands. I was just on a live yesterday with my live show. I learned 3 new brands that I never knew about. So that's another reason why I enjoy doing lives through Poshmark. And when I'm on my Poshmark shared show, I also show my items. And yes, sometimes I sell my items. But it's also letting people know these items are in my closet. If you're interested in more of these types of items, do feel free to go check out my closet, okay? You can't do that on Whatnot. On Whatnot is just literally what you're showing, and you have to take time out of your schedule to put those items up on that Whatnot show. On Poshmark, you can bring the items over or show the items, and it gives people the opportunity to follow you. I cannot tell you how many people have been on my Poshmark lives, and I get people following me, people following me, because they like my show, they like what I'm doing, and even if I don't sell something in that show, people are following me, and they're liking my live listings, okay? So again, it's kicking the algorithm, and I'm building community. People on there know who I am now. I've been doing it for a while, and they like my items. And I have also sold some items. Plus, I'm selling items for other people who've shared their items in the tray. We are making sales already for other people who've been in the show. And so other people are encouraged to come to the show for that, which is definitely building more community. People are helping each other. If people are brand new to Poshmark or brand new to Lives, whether they want to be on Lives or not, I have people who come on and say, hey, I've never done this before. And we encourage them, we support them, we follow them. So that's why I'm continuing with doing Poshmark Lives, because I've noticed more sales coming from it, and it builds community for me. People are following me, maybe even checking out my closet, versus doing Whatnot, taking time away and doing that and hopefully making a sale. So that's what I'm choosing to do for now. That may change down the road, I don't know. But that's why I'm doing Poshmark Lives. Let's talk about Lives though in general. And I've talked with quite a few other resellers, and they agree with this 100%. A big majority of Poshmark Lives, guys, or any Lives, has become a social hangout. Okay? I've seen, even being in other Whatnot Lives, I have seen people in the chat talk about how they are actually on Lives, not necessarily purchase, but it's a social hangout for them. After everything that we've been through the last few years, there are a lot of people who have become extremely introverted or don't go out much anymore now, and going on Lives is their social hangout, whether it's Whatnot or Poshmark. Many people have told me, even in my Lives, that the Lives is a social interaction for them. They like the interaction, they like connecting with people that are on there, that are kind of become regulars on the Lives. There are people on Whatnot and Poshmark who are on there to purchase things. But a lot of people, I would say probably, I don't know the numbers, but I would easily say 90% of the people who are on Lives are there for social interaction. And I know that this is even true for Whatnot, because I've been in even live chats on Whatnot. Many people say that they are in those Lives for social interaction. So it's not just me saying this, guys. Many people are saying that they're on there. Now, the majority of the people who are on Lives, some people are on there maybe looking for something specific. Yes, 100%, that does happen. But a lot of the people who are on Lives there are not looking for anything specific. They just end up buying something because they see something cute on there, it's at a cheap price, and they buy it at a whim. A lot of purchases are bought at a whim on auctions. That's the way they work. Okay, so let's move on to some other topics, you guys. I just wanted to cover that very specifically. As a reseller, let's talk about YouTube a little bit. As a reseller, I encourage you, I know it's easy for us resellers, and I've gotten into this too. I have cut back on the number of people that I follow on YouTube. And the reason why that is doing some of these interviews and also watching other YouTubers. And I have to give Anea a cue on this, you guys. The gal who I researched, who I did the interview of with Anea, she really made an incredible point to me that really kind of hit home for me. She doesn't follow anybody on YouTube. She has been busy running a 7-figure reselling business on Whatnot. She has her head down. She's focused on just her reselling business. And I really give credit to her for that. She doesn't watch a bunch of YouTube videos. She already knows what works for her and what's working for her. She's doing it. She's doing it very well. But she made a point, though, that she doesn't follow a lot of people on YouTube. She has a couple people that she may follow, maybe a couple lives she goes on to, but she has her head down working her business. If you watch YouTube videos for research, I get that. I do it too. I have specific people that I follow for those purposes. But it's easy to see other YouTube videos and other YouTubers like myself. It's a fun experience. You watch somebody, you kind of get into their lives, their personal lives. Maybe they got married, maybe they're a couple, and you really enjoy how they click, how they work their YouTube videos. But may I make a note? If you're watching YouTube videos that have nothing to do with how you resell, I want you to rethink this. And this is why Anea made a point to me about this that I enjoyed. Is you should only be watching YouTube videos during your business hours if it's benefiting your actual business model. What I mean by that is if you have another reseller who runs a YouTube channel and it's within the niche that you sell in, and they're sourcing and finding brands, and you're trying to get clicked with certain brands that work for you where you source, or however you source. Or if they have souls in a niche, like if you sell women's clothes plus size, and they do a lot of sourcing in plus size, or just women's in general, and that's a niche that you're in, and you want to learn more about brands, and they do well in their brands on women's, they're making sales, and you want to learn about what types of sales they make, the styles, the bolos, what things are selling for, what the cogs are. If that is your niche, then I definitely recommend you follow that person and watch their videos and learn from them. But if you're watching videos in a niche that is not something you sell in, and you still enjoy their videos, I recommend you watch those videos only when your reselling business time is done. What I mean by that is if you have a certain time of the day when you are reselling, that is your clock. Like if you work a full-time job, you come home in the evening and it's reselling time. You're doing your photos, you're doing your listings, you're doing your research on what your items are. You know what I mean? By your reselling clocking time, you are reselling in the mode, okay? I wouldn't recommend you watching videos during that time if it is not in that reselling niche that you are in. If you have somebody that you just enjoy their videos and they sell hard goods, you like their personality, you like their personal life and what they're doing, their videos just clicking, it's an enjoyment and entertainment for you. I encourage you, if you still want to watch those videos, watch it when you're not on your reselling time. If you're all done with your reselling, you're all done with your job, your family time and all that, and you have separate time alone for just enjoying a fun video, go for it and watch that video. But if it's not in your niche and it's not tailored to what you're reselling, I'm not telling you what to do, but I encourage you that during your reselling time, you're only watching videos that actually impact and benefit your actually reselling niche, okay? I'm speaking to myself. I'm critiquing and changing how I'm watching my reselling YouTube videos too. In fact, I've actually unfollowed some people because I'm realizing right now from my business model where I am, that doesn't work for me anymore. It's nothing wrong with the videos they're doing. It just isn't benefiting me, and I don't have time to watch everybody. So I am specifically critiquing back on my YouTube videos for my entertainment or my research. I hope that makes sense. Okay, when it comes to research, and this has been kind of a hot spot, you guys. We've kind of touched on this a little bit, but not too much. And this is something that her video isn't out yet. I have another interview coming out in 2 weeks. Her and I talked on this subject, and it was so good. We talked about how you really need to do your own research, guys. I know a lot of times, like when people are in lives, where did you get your pallets? When you're doing a YouTube video, where did you get your inventory? People are always wanting to know where another reseller got their products. No matter what the product is, if it's hard goods, kids' clothes, it doesn't matter what you're selling. People are always asking, where did you get your inventory? I'm going to be nice, but I'm going to say, stop asking this question, guys. And I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm saying this for a really important point. You are not going to learn what works for your own business if you keep asking everybody else what works for their business. We've talked a lot in the past year about business model. Not everything works for everybody, right? So with that point in mind, guys, you can keep asking people where they got their inventory, but if that inventory doesn't suit your business model, it's a moot point. And if you're not taking the time to do that research yourself, you're not going to learn and go through the growth spurt on your business that person went through for their business. Does that make sense? So if somebody's having to do a lot of research, when you do research on your business about finding product, there is so much you glean from doing your own research. What companies work, what their cogs are, what their shipping is, how much they charge for shipping. Let me say, for example, guys, new without tags, Quick Lots. Back when Quick Lots, when I first started buying from Quick Lots, okay, I had to do a lot of research about that company. Over time, they changed how they did their boxes. They changed how they did their shipping. And if I had done my own research on learning about that company and what they do, and over time continuing to buy from them, realizing how they were changing their shipping, how they were changing their cogs. If I just heard from somebody, hey, I bought from this company and just bought the box, and didn't research how that company did certain things, you would not know those changes that happened with that company over time. Does that make sense? You also have a different cog for your business model. And I know this because a lot of resellers have different cogs. For me, my cog is typically $5 average. My cheapest cog is $1. My highest cog that I've ever had, my highest cog right now is $8. But even at that, I don't do that very often. My average cog is $5 or less. Okay? But some people, their COG is $8 or $10, $15, $20. And they don't do the low COGs. They buy the brand new pieces from companies. Their COG is much higher. Their research is going to be a lot different than yours. So even if you ask them where they got their items, if their COG is not your business model, it's kind of a moot point. So I encourage you guys to spend time doing your own research. Plus, doing your own research, you learn more about brands, what brands work for you, what don't. Doing your own research in thrift stores. You get my point, okay? You really need to do your own research for your own business. So you can keep asking people where they get their inventory, but you really need to find what works best for you. And you only grow and learn for your business what works and what doesn't work by doing your own research. Okay. This is a big one, guys. And some people might be really mad at me for saying this, but I need to put it out there, guys. And I've actually talked with some other resellers that have done this and regretted doing this, okay? Do not go into debt to start your business or buy product. If you have credit cards, do not go into debt to buy your product. I know there's a lot of people on Instagram especially. They're going on there and they're saying, use credit cards and go into debt to buy a pallet because if you use a certain credit card, you get rewards and you just pay it off at the end of the month. I know there are people saying that, and I do not agree with that, okay? I do not agree with that for a few reasons. One, if for some reason that pallet does not get recouped, you are now in debt on that pallet, and if you didn't get recouped on that pallet because it ended up being a bad pallet, you are now in debt on a pallet that you can't get your money back on. And you now have to figure out a way to pay that pallet off without actually being able to sell the product to pay the pallet off. That is not a good choice. And I know people say, well, I get free, flying rewards, and I'm going on trips because of my free rewards. And if for some reason that pallet bombs, you are now in debt on that pallet. And if you're using that pallet to do lives, I know some people are going to be really mad at me for this, but we have to say this. We have to talk about this, guys. If you are using those pallets on lives, and this is something that her interview is coming out in a couple weeks. She talks about this in her interview. There are people who are reselling only doing lives. For some reason, they have a cold. They lose their voice for a week or two. They're down with the flu, and they can't do lives for a week or two. You're not going to be able to pay for that pallet within a month because you can't do lives. So another reason why I haven't gone into it yet. I really don't recommend just doing lives. I think if you're going to do lives, you should also list as well. Because again, if you lose your voice and you can't do lives, I've been in lives, guys. I have seen hosts that talk about how they couldn't be on lives for a week or two because they were down sick or they had family members to tend to and they couldn't do lives and their family came first. There are multiple reasons why you cannot do live shows. And if you bought a pallet on debt and you were expecting to pay for that debt at the end of the month and just recoup that money because you were doing lives every day, it doesn't always work that way, guys. Life happens. Okay, so we're going to move on. All right, don't go into debt. I know a lot of people say, well, let's just buy a pallet. What I encourage you to do is start out small. Okay, and we're actually going to go into that. So let's talk about that. Let's transition to that. When you buy for lives, what I do encourage you to do is maybe to start out with, this is something that one reseller told me she did. She literally took clothes from her closet and she put them on lives. She had a whole bunch of inventory. She has massive amount of clothing in her clothes. Or maybe you have friends and family who are getting rid of stuff. And you can do dollar starts or $3 starts or $5 starts on whatnot. Start out doing that with items like that and build up community doing that. And over time, take that money and go over to the thrift store and buy some other items, maybe really good brands for like $3 or $4 or $5. Put it up on whatnot and get your money back. I know another reseller. She is currently doing tons and tons of pallets now, but she started out with just free people. She sold it at least with her COG and her profit from her fees from whatnot. And she built up and she pays cash for her pallets on whatnot. She did not do it all upfront, pallets on whatnot, and went into debt to do it. She started out really, really small. She built her way up, and now she is a six-figure reseller plus on whatnot. But she started out with a really good brand, thrifted items, and she sold them, making money and profit with those thrifted items, and she built up to pallets, and she paid cash as she started and went her way up. Okay, so that's how you do it. That's how I recommend you do it. Don't go into debt on pallets or inventory, period. Even if you're going to a thrift store, don't put it in debt. Pull from your closet, make $50, and take it to the thrift store and bring it back to whatnot. And you know what I'm saying. Okay, we're gonna move on. Okay, guys, go through your inventory. And this is actually something that I'm doing right now. I am still buying inventory, but I've also cut back on what I'm buying right now, and this is why. I'm in the process of still going through inventory. It is taking me a while, but that's okay. When I go through inventory, some things, especially if you sell on eBay, guys, we've talked about this. If things get kicked off of eBay, you have to relist the item. But I encourage you, if it's been a while since you've gone through your inventory, go through your inventory again. If it's something you listed a year ago, the likelihood is you can update the photo, you can update your listings, you can tweak things, change things, improve things. I encourage you to go through your old inventory, pull out some things that are really stale, pull those listings off completely. Redo the photos, improve the photos, the quality of the photos, your keywords, maybe your pricing was bad, and relist that thing, a brand new, fresh listing. So maybe go a month without buying inventory and just literally refresh and redo brand new listings of old stale inventory. This one, for one, will help you not have to buy new inventory for maybe a few weeks to a month. And you have taken old inventory that isn't selling, done new listings on them, redone the prices, redone the keywords like we just talked about, or maybe it's just something you should just get rid of. And you have now new listings that you can try and sell over the next few months and see if it maybe refreshing things worked, okay? Again, sometimes it's just something you just need to get rid of. But if it's something that is just an old stale listing, take it down. Freshen it up. Put up some new, fresh, photos. Maybe you've got some better lighting since then. Maybe you've got new keywords that you're doing. You get my point. Freshen it up. And maybe either cut back or not do, if you have enough inventory to do this with, maybe don't buy inventory for a month and just sell for a month and just freshen things up for a month from old stale inventory. And that way you're not putting money out for inventory for a month. But go through your listings and freshen some things up. Okay, so the next thing is, and guys, this is a big one. We all know that brands have changed a lot, even just the last 6 months. There's a lot of brands, we've talked about this already. I'm not going to go through all of them. There's a lot of brands that just are not selling well, that were selling well a year ago. Take some time to research. If you sell on eBay and Poshmark, take some time to do research on both in your downtime when you're not listing, but you're still in reseller mode on the clock, right? Take some time to really research eBay and Poshmark. Items that you have or you're thinking about getting in certain brands, see what they're selling for now. See what kind of items. Maybe it's a certain style of a brand that maybe it isn't selling so well anymore and you need to reduce the price and just kind of get it gone. Maybe that item is selling better now than it was 6 months ago and you've got it priced lower and you can change your price and sell it even better now. So let's make sure we're taking time to do inventory on our different platforms on a regular basis to see what trends are doing well and what trends aren't, because it is constantly ever changing. And right now in reselling, it is changing so fast. Lots of different brands and styles weren't doing well 6 months ago, are doing really well now, and vice versa. Okay, let's talk about pricing, guys. And this is something that I used to do even a year ago, and I have changed since then. After being part of the group that I'm a part of with eBay, they talk about this a lot, and they make some really, really good points. I know some resellers increase their price 20-30% from what the COG is, because they price up really high, and then they go in and they offer like a 30% off on their items, hoping that 30% off will, hey, this is 30% off, I'm going to buy it because it's 30% off. Learning through the group that I'm a part of, that may not be such a good idea, and this is why. We all know that people are really tight in their budget right now, right? So when people are looking for items on Poshmark and eBay, they're looking within a certain price range, right? and that certain price range, let's say for example you have a pair of jeans that is a really good brand and it sells really well at a certain price bracket. Let's say it's $35. If you know that most of those cogs are selling at $35, but you price it up 30%, okay, whatever 30% is of $30, if people are looking to buy something within that average sold price range of $35, they're not looking at the price range of 30% up, so you can send them a 30% offer. They're looking at a price range at the $35 cog mark, right? If a platform is saying that something sold at $35 on average, it's not priced up at 30%, it's at the $35. So when people are scrolling to look for your item and the average price of that item is being sold around $35, that's the price range that people are looking at for that sold item, right? So if you've got yours priced up 30% to offer a 30% offer, they're not going to be seeing your item, especially on eBay, they're not going to be seeing your item at that price range. They're looking within that price range that it's sold at. So what I've learned is that I still bump up about 10% for an offer for 10%. But if you're priced too far out of that price range to make a 30% off offer, your item may not be being seen, especially on eBay, because you priced up so much and people are not looking in that price bracket for that item when the sold clogs are at $35. So what I've done is I've changed is I'm sticking around the average price range. If it's $35, I bump it up maybe 10% to do the offer. And then if somebody sends me an offer within that price range, if it's making me money, then I go ahead and I take the offer. But if you're bumping it up too high, especially on eBay, guys, people are not seeing your item because your listing price is going to be too high, and it's not being seen within that top first page of eBay. And even on Poshmark, guys, if your item is listed that high, people are just going to keep scrolling because they're not going to be paying that price versus the lower cogged prices. Does that make sense? So just really think about what you're listing your items at. I know we all like to do the 30% off offer because they're thinking, oh wow, it's 30% off. But the thing is that if they're not even looking within that price range, people are scrolling and they're looking for the price range, the average price range for that price, people are going to be looking for the best deal that they can find on that item. And my personal experience is when I have a price too high, they're just going to keep scrolling. They're not even going to click on my item, let alone buy it. Okay. Brands that are oversaturated. We all know that this so definitely does happen. So again, doing research on brands and knowing what's oversaturated, we've talked about how you watch YouTube videos where somebody bought this item. Everlane was a big one. People were really into Everlane. They were buying Everlane. And then Everlane shot their prices up through Helpsy source. And people were having a hard time buying it because it got so oversaturated. So we don't really need to go into more of those oversaturation. You guys know what I'm talking about with oversaturation on brands. Sometimes brands just go out of stock because it is just so oversaturated and it just isn't going to sell very well. Okay, just a couple more, you guys. I didn't want this video to be too long. Keeping your cog low. I know, again, some people do really well with their cog really high where they spend $15 or $20 on an item. And if it is your business model where you're okay spending $20 on an item and you want to buy a box that's like $500 or $600 for 20 pieces and that cog works well for you and you're willing to only make like maybe half of that cog, so you make your money back on the $20 for the cog and then maybe you make an extra $10 on that item when it sells. If that works for your business model, that's great. But I'm thinking the majority of the people here can't afford to spend $500 or $600 per one box to list if they're listing 5 or 10 items a day. That's a lot of money going out up front on items. I know for me that doesn't work for my business model. So I work to keep my COGS super, super low, which is going to lead us into our last topic, is sourcing. Now guys, if sourcing at the thrift store is still working really well for you, I think that's fantastic. It doesn't work for me. I live too far away from it, and for my storage, we've already talked about that. So sourcing for me online has been imperative. Now, husband and I've talked about it. I've had to get creative with sourcing, guys, because even online sourcing has become very, very challenging for me in the last 6-8 months. So I have had to research and figure out what works well for me. And you all know now that I have people who are shopping for me at their bins, sourcing for me and sending me items in their boxes, and we have a certain agreed upon price that I paid for the items that they source for me. I encourage you, if boxes online and your thrift stores aren't working for sourcing for you, you need to get creative with how you source for your items. And you're going to have to figure out what works for you. Maybe reach out to people on Instagram like I did. Figure out a way that they source. Maybe they source pallets and they have a lot of inventory and their pallet cog works for you. And they can send you a box of items from the pallets that they get, and that cog works, and it works well for your business model. Maybe you have people who source at the thrift store and they have certain items that they pick up, and the cog for their thrift store works for you on top of their fee for sending it to you. Maybe you have people that you can find that do wholesale. There's a lot of companies now like what Untamed Thread is doing. She has great pieces, you guys. Find people like her and others that do boxes like that where the cog is still low and they're willing to send items to you. You have to get creative with what works for you. If you can't do boxes through companies like Helpsy Source or Boutique by the Box and so on and so forth. If those cogs are too high and the thrift stores aren't working for you, you have to be creative, and you can't go by what other people are doing. We've already talked about that. You have to figure out what works for you. If what I'm doing, if that works for you, go for it. Find people that do that for you. But if what I'm doing doesn't work for you, don't worry about what I'm doing. Figure out what works best for you. So I just kind of wanted to share some of these things with you guys. We are still early in this 2024 year, guys, and reselling can still be such a great year for all of us. We all just have to figure out, with all of these changes that are happening, I just want to come on and share with you guys. You just need to figure out some different things, right, guys? So I just, especially after doing some of these interviews that I've been doing, I'm learning so much from these interviews, guys. And some of the things that I've been hearing doing my interviews, I've actually been doing some tweaking and changing due to a couple of interviews recently. The Whatnot Lives that I discontinued doing just because, for me, my time and what's going on with Whatnot, my husband and I are changing gears and doing other things. The Poshmark Lives I'm going to keep doing for a while because it is actually benefiting my Poshmark closet. It is working for me. It's great community for me with my Poshmark Lives. If Whatnot works for you, keep doing it. Go for it. I know one gal who does plus sizes and Whatnot. She does very well with Whatnot doing plus sizes. I'm super happy for her that it works really well for her. And I definitely encourage her to keep doing it if it's working for her. Some people lives don't work at all really well. Some people, certain platforms. Some people don't like eBay at all. They love Poshmark. Some people don't like Poshmark and they love eBay. You get the point. You just have to stick with what works for you. But I thought I'd jump on here and talk about these important aspects about reselling and how reselling is changing and how we need to grow with the tide, guys. I really hope this was a blessing to you. I'm so glad to share this with you. And guys, thank you so much for being here with me. As always, be productive, and we will see you next time.